Go into a public hearing.
So moved.
Motion on the floor to go into public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried. And Mr. Adam Morris, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you all. So presented this to you last month. Just wanted to follow back up, see if you all have any questions after reviewing the document. I do have a few here that I had listed that if you all had asked about. The document was put into the paper a week and a half ago. It's been shared on our web page under the county page. As of today, we have not had anybody call in reference to any questions. But yes, you can still burn leaves, wooden material, tree limbs, wood, stuff like that, natural vegetation. You can still have campfires. You can burn in outdoor wood pits or burn pits as long as it's natural vegetation, not trash. The outside wood stoves are still allowed to be used. We're not here to do away with any of those as well. You still can use those. The main focal point with the open burning is to make known and be able to enforce burning of illegal and unauthorized items such as trash, wires, building materials, tires, anything that's not natural vegetation. All of the surrounding counties around Person County have some form of this same ordinance put in place. The summary that I sent to County Manager Kathy that she sent on to you all, 37 cases of this in the last 10 years, 32 of them been residential, and we've had 3 since the presentation January 3rd. So it is still an ongoing thing. So of course, this will be an educational item, not to come out of the gate issuing fines. We still do the education part, share as much as we can about it. We'd educate, warning letter would be the second time, and then the third one would be the coming out with the fine. So if you approve this tonight, in the agenda packet on pages 6 and 7, the abstract, but you see the general statute 143, 138, section E goes through that process. So we missed the February 1st deadline. So I have to get it submitted in if you approve it tonight with the signature sheet, and we will be on the June agenda to get it passed by the Code Council. Then it will become effective July 1st. So at that time, we would take the current false fire alarm and then the resolution for the fire marshal due to burn ban. Those would all be incorporated under this one ordinance, so we'd have just one ordinance in place. So any of y'all have any questions with anything regarding this?
I just want to clarify with the open burning of leaves, clippings, any vegetation, that is not going to require a county permit to do so,
No, sir.
nor having a recreational fire.
Any other comments? Were there any parts of this that the county was not in compliance with the way things stand before a vote on this?
Pretty much just the illegal burning part.
Yeah, okay.
Right now, we just go out and educate them on it. We really can't push the fine part on it till we get this adopted here. There is one little change that we would have to look at, page 30 of your agenda document, which is chapter 10, section 10.9, the bullet, second one, about the yard debris. So originally this was, you could only do it on your yard, but they have since changed that. So such as tree cutters or landscapers, they can actually transport it from one place back to another and do that. So we're just gonna remove that one bullet point out of that. That has changed since the original document.
Any more questions? Anybody? Okay, then, at this point in the public hearing, we have time set aside for public comments related to the proposal. Madam Clerk, do we have speakers here?
Yes, we do. We do have one individual signed up to address the board. Mr. Bob Brower of Roxborough wishes to speak in favor of the ordinance.
In favor of, and we would have a 10-minute limit, but you're it.
I don't need 10 minutes. Well, good evening, all. My name is Bob Brower. I'm the chairperson for the Person County Environmental Issues Advisory Committee. And again, come here tonight to speak in favor of the ordinance that Adam has proposed, specifically on the ban of burning trash and other non-vegetative matter in Person County. And again, as Adam said, this doesn't in any way interfere with recreational fires, barbecues, fire pits, and that sort of thing. Those are all will remain legal. They should, however, be done in a manner consistent with the fire safety guidelines, obviously, if we have, high fire risks and things of that nature. But as for trash, modern packaging has changed a lot in the recent times. Plastics, building materials, including painted and treated wood, these all contain toxic chemicals. Those chemicals are released when the material is burned. It goes into the atmosphere, causing air pollution, but it also remains behind in the fire residues, which can leach into our groundwater, as well as remain in the soil and pollute the soil. So trash materials of any kind should never be burned. They can be disposed of properly at our landfill, or in a better way through our recycle program. So I'm asking the commissioners to approve this ordinance so we can avoid further delay, and Person County authorities can enforce this ban of the regulations that's been in place since 1971. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Madam Clerk, do we have anyone?
No further comments, sir.
None at all. Do we have a motion to come out of the public hearing?
So moved.
Have a motion to come out of the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carried. Item number 3 would be consideration to adopt a fire prevention or protection ordinance as presented. We have a motion, or
Chairman Powell, I'd make a motion to approve this, going forward with this new ordinance.
have a motion for approval of the ordinance. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your work on that. This morning, in our commissioners' meeting, we have a 10-minute period set aside for public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have speakers signed up?
Yes, we do. We have 4 individuals.
Okay. And we do have 10 minutes here, and IT will go with
2.5,
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
2.5 minutes.
So 2 minutes for each speaker.
Okay. All right, our first speaker is Mr. Dan Ullman of Chapel Hill.
Good
Good
evening.
afternoon, sir.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Make sure the
ahead.
microphone's there. Okay. So I'm Dan Oldman, a Republican member of District 4. Last Tuesday, Emmanuel Jarvis, the head of the GOP District 4 Republican Party, and I held a virtual meeting on the subject of Republican response to climate change. In that meeting, I summarized the positions of the U.S. House Speaker McCarthy's energy innovation agenda and the positions of the 76 Republican members of the U.S. House Conservative Climate Caucus. These people understand that climate change is a growing problem brought on by human development. They believe that something must be done that is consistent with American economic development, competitiveness, and jobs. The new clean economy must effectively use a mix of renewables, nuclear, and fossil fuel power with carbon capture to be effective. Trade policy must encourage good behavior worldwide. I understand an opinion piece is about to be published in the Courier, and I'll just read one paragraph from it. What's more, clean energy is a growing economic sector across our state. North Carolina is ranked first among all 50 U.S. states in rural clean energy jobs, according to the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association. Small businesses account for almost 4 out of 5 clean energy jobs in North Carolina, ranking second in America. And local governments draw 8 times the property tax revenue from solar sites as their parcels produced before. So I'm speaking in positive for the item number 5 on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, the next speaker is Ms. Carol Carter of Huddle Mills.
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm Carol
Evening.
Carter. I live in Hurdle Mills, and I'm speaking about the idea to redo the furniture. I oppose having something permanent, although I did see the latest drawings look like semi-permanent. I'm in the furniture industry, and even though they say they're semi-permanent, they still require a lot of work to take down and put away. And I do not know that we have the staff to do that. I belong to 3 different groups in the county: the beekeepers, the Cattlemen's Association, and the Farm Bureau, and we all have meetings here, sometimes once a month, and it would be prohibitive to not have the whole room for us to use. So I would ask you to think again about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. Jimmy Whitfield of Timberlake.
Good evening.
Good afternoon.
Pleasure to be here speaking with y'all tonight. And I appreciate the time that we are allotted to speak, from a public perspective, an informal basis. I would just urge you to not restrict us too much as far as the time and whatnot. Another 5 minutes, depending on the night, might be okay. Hopefully, it wouldn't push your time here too long. I'd be in favor of paying you some overtime if necessary. You only have 40,000 citizens to serve here in this county. And I know it takes a lot of time to do your job, so I would just, informally like to ask you not to curtail our public speaking time too much. Second item I'd like to speak to you about, and thank you for, was the hard work that you put into putting together a solar farm ordinance for our county. I want to thank you for that. A lot of my friends and neighbors, some had money invested in it, some didn't want to see some of the projects that were not permitted. And having done that already, I think your next decision might be a little bit easier for you, and it might create less angst in the county if we are able to follow the existing ordinance and not go forward with hundreds more acres of farmland. Let the farmland produce the crops, or trees produce the oxygen, because if we do go forward with another large-scale solar farm, that land will be tied up for a long time, and we don't know what the end result's going to be. So I'd just like for you to follow what you've already done and make life easier on everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
And our last speaker is Mr. Paul Lynch of Huddle Mills.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to speak tonight to you about the vital importance of maintaining our current solar use ordinance in its current form. 2 years ago, this board went through a number of public hearings and considered at length 2 very similar sized solar projects in the southern part of this county. After considerable deliberation, you wisely decided to vote both of them down unanimously. Now we have a presentation that is going to be before us here to ask you to modify that ordinance or do a completely new one to allow projects over 10 times the size of what is currently allowed. Now, one of the carrots that are going to be dangled in front of you, of course, are the ratables that can be generated from this. Now, I've seen numbers bandied about in the press, and I've read the presentation that was available on the county website, and I'm a little confused as to exactly what they're going to claim here. But whatever it may be, I ask you to consider the cost of those ratables. Remember this, please. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. It's going to cost the county something. That something is going to be opening Pandora's box that will allow developers, solar developers, to come back in here and ask for vast projects the two that you voted down 2 years ago. I promise you, we'll be back with a vengeance, along with who knows what else that are coming behind them. There will be many. Our vulnerability here is the fact that we have those 2 power plants up on the lakes with transmission systems that run all the way down through the county, okay? And if you open that box, open the floodgates, you're going to find applications that are going to turn a large stretch of the center of this county into a solar power plant. It will change the very character of this county, the very character of the place we live and love. So I ask you to please, please do not consider modifying that ordinance to suit this application. Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you, sir. And that was all, correct?
That's correct.
Item number 4 on the agenda is, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in your packet.
So moved.
A motion for approval of the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None, motion carried. Moving to new business, item number 5, Cypress Creek and Person County, Mr. Harrison Cole. And I want to make one statement here before you begin, sir, and for those of concern in the audience. This is a presentation only for consideration, and no action will be taken on any request here tonight, so I just want to clarify that. I don't know if any other commissioners have any comments. We don't want any misunderstanding about what we're doing. All right, sir, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And are we able to display, or do y'all have copies of it? If not, I brought copies of the presentation.
It will be projected. Just one second.
Perfect.
And there's a clicker right to your right there.
And Chairman, thank you for those words, because that was going to be the first thing out of my mouth as well, so.
Good. You can go ahead and say it all over again if you like.
Yep. All right, well, while this is loading, just kind of, so first of all, name is Harrison Cole. My address is 45 Banks Avenue, Asheville, North Carolina. And a little bit about myself. I'm a native to North Carolina, grew up in Greensboro, went to school at NC State, and now live up in the mountains. And have been working with Cypress for 6 years now. So have worked with various counties all throughout the state, and really enjoy this type of work because lets you connect with the local people and hear their feedback. So Cypress Creek was founded in 2014. We have 2 offices in North Carolina, one in Asheville and one in Durham. Our Durham office is our flagship office, which houses our command center, which is where our operations and maintenance division is located. And they're the ones that keep track of the facilities, make sure all management of the facilities is complete, make sure the vegetative buffer and everything like that is operating as it's supposed to be. See if I figure this out. Cool. So Cypress Creek has been, one of the key stakeholders in North Carolina clean energy since 2014. As you can see, we've done a lot of projects in North Carolina. I've personally worked with dozens of counties and really value their feedback because we can take those lessons learned to the next county as well when we're doing this. So this shows all of our projects that we have throughout the United States, as well as a spotlight looking at selling energy to Starbucks, because as we have seen in the news, a lot of these Fortune 500 companies do like to have renewable energy investments, and that's where they like to get their power from in certain states. So here's just a couple of our projects that we've worked on. So we have the Bullocks Farm in North Carolina. There's a Double Eagle one down below, and then Innovative 46 as well, and then a couple others in Oregon and Texas. So we really look at large projects and small projects, and the way that North Carolina has started to move toward is these larger ones, which we can get into here in a second. But like I said, we like to really take the feedback that we get from counties and neighbors and put that to good use. So we strive to make a really good impact in the community, and that includes scholarships, trade associations, or like workforce development, because tax dollars are nice, but we also want to make sure we're making a real human impact as well with these at each individual county. So just a little bit of background. So back from 2012 to 2018, all solar farms were about 20 to 30 acres, maybe slightly more. And that was because that Duke gave us a certain amount of, a certain rate for the energy. There was no competition, so you could put in an application with Duke, it goes through, you get approved, and then you're good to go. So that's what you see in the top right corner is that 5 megawatt, kind of what you see typically throughout the state. And so now, in 2018, there's a couple of House bills passed. Most recently, House Bill 951, a bipartisan law that came into effect that sets up a competitive procurement program for solar. And so what that means is that developers such as myself are bidding these projects into a Duke program, and the way that they're selected is it's least cost. And that being that, there's no cost passed along to the ratepayers from our projects. And so it really allows, these cheap projects to come online and supply power to the state. There's other smaller programs that go along in North Carolina and South Carolina and Duke territory. But really, the main drive is this annual program that Duke releases for new projects. So talking about Percy County in particular, as we know, there's 2 plants here in Percy County, and because of that, there's transmission lines available throughout the county. The good thing is that there's limited capacity on these transmission lines. There's not an infinite amount of energy that can be put onto these existing transmission lines, and when we're going through the study process with Duke, if there's any grid upgrades that are needed, Duke will let us know, and then we have to fund those ourselves in order for the project to come online. So there is some amount of additional capacity that can be added, but not an infinite amount for Percy County or for any county for that instance. And so, and one important thing to note is I know there's a lot of conversations going on with the existing plants in Percy County and the carbon plant and everything like that. And, we really have no dog in that fight. We're here just to do our projects. If those plants stay online, that's fine. If they go away, that's not our fight. And so just want to reiterate that, we can work in harmony with those existing plants. We're not taking away their energy or their ability to do business there. So I just want to make sure that that's clear and that we're not here to, take those jobs or anything like that. And then, in Percy County, there are population centers and pockets of neighborhoods, and so because of that, there's really limited options for building these larger plants. And so, it's still a discretionary process that the board has in approving any project, no matter what size, especially if it's in, this rezoning district or whatnot. So the commissioners still ultimately have that power in order to deny it. And then, like I said, we don't know exactly what's going to happen to the plants, but we'll find out some more information in 2024 when the next iteration of the carbon plan is filed. There we go. And so these are the kind of an FAQ we put together. A lot of questions we typically get from neighbors, from commissioners such as yourself throughout the county, throughout the state. And so really just want to talk through these real briefly. Visual impact, Percy County has a really extensive vegetative buffer, and we've hired a landscape architect to kind of show the rendering of that. And it really, will essentially take the visibility of the farm from the right-of-way to 0. It's a really dense, and on top of the setbacks that you have for Percy County. Property values, anytime we're going, for a specific project, we bring a certified North Carolina appraiser to come in. He does a study, and he takes a look at this existing solar farms and their property values before and after, and sees if there's any kind of correlation. So that's something we have done, and he'll be maybe potentially available for questions if anyone has any further things they want to ask about that. But his report does show that there's no impact to neighboring property values. Distrust of developers. I think it's, there's been several developers that have come to Percy County in the past, and various other North Carolina counties. We have a strong relationship with a number of counties and have been around since 2014, and so we've worked with over 40 throughout the state. and even more in, in South Carolina and other states as well. But we want to maintain our image here because we do have offices. We're located in North Carolina. We want to make sure that we're giving anyone the best information that we have available. The next is the loss of farmland. So this study was just released last year, and it concluded that less than 1/3% of agricultural land is currently used for solar farm throughout the state. And I want to make sure that it's agricultural land, so if you take a look at timberland or other kind of land, that figure gets even smaller. And this is a temporary use. This is a 40-year project, a 35, 40-year project. And so after that time span has ended, we can come in and decommission the project, take all the material off. We go, and most of it has a pretty high salvage value because it's steel, aluminum, and copper. So those do have some values in it. And then erosion, these panels, they allow rainwater to just drop off and it goes back into land like it typically does right now. And so we would use our best practices, have stormwater basins, anything like that. We leave existing ditches on site so that the water still channels correctly and how it's supposed to. Decommissioning, we're willing to enter into a decommissioning bond like we have done with the various counties, and we also have a condition of our lease that makes us decommission the site from the landowner's perspective. And so you're kind of, any county where that's the case, you're kind of protected in both ways that way. Wildlife protection, we work with all the different agencies, including Fish and Wildlife, looking at endangered or protected species, making sure there's no impacts. And if it's required, we go through a full survey and study process to make sure that we're not impacting any kind of, wildlife or anything like that that's protected. And then Heat Island, that's something that has come up before, but we have talked to our professional engineers and with NC State, and they have come up with the conclusion that these plants do not cause a heat island, and they've made various testimony on the record in that case, and so they'll be more happy to dive into that kind of specifics, but again, we're kind of talking broadly here for Person County. And so this is our project that we're looking at right now. It's in the northwest corner of the county, to the northwest of Hyco Lake. So the total parcel acreage is about 1,200, but the actual solar area is about 380, and that's the size for about an 80 megawatt plant. So we have 2 local landowners that are under contract, and we got this project from another developer because the land, they were shifting their focus or whatnot, and the landowner really just wants to make use of his land and be able to provide long-term assets to his family. For this project, we would be looking at a tax increase of 5.4 to 7.2 million over the 40-year lifespan of the project. And then we can talk about construction jobs. During construction, there'll be hundreds of jobs along with direct economic benefit to local communities. You think in restaurants, motels, that kind of thing, over where people are staying. And then also we'll have some a handful of permanent jobs. Like I said, we work with local contractors for any kind of vegetative maintenance and anything like that. And we also have our command center in Durham that can address any questions. So a little bit more about Cypress Creek. So like I said, we like to really be involved with our communities. So we fund a couple scholarships throughout the state, across the country as well. We engage with all EMS services before construction starts, and so that they're aware of what's going on. If there's any incident, they know how to handle it and can work with our construction managers on that process. And we also like to set up workforce developments for local community colleges that we have done in the past. We've actually just started partnering with this new company called Beta Box out of Raleigh, where they bring field trips to students, essentially. And so they focus on K through 12, and we actually had an event last month in Wayne County and Duplin County, and so those were really big success, and we're excited to roll this out through the rest of the county, or rest of the counties as well. But for Person County, we really want to be, here in good faith, and we set aside $50,000 in local giving. We're working with the chamber currently to make sure that we can allocate sponsorships and all that kind of stuff to local groups and make sure that we're getting our name out there and really helping out as much as we can. And yeah, so this is the kind of process for what would be required for this project to proceed. So first, as it was stated, the ordinance does not allow any project over 100 acres, and so we would at a future date ask that that be reconsidered to allow change for a larger project over 100 acres of solar area. If this text amendment is passed and a project wants to move forward, they would still need to come to the Board of Commissioners and go through the rezoning process potentially, and so that really still gives the board the discretion of approving or denying any solar project. And even if all that goes well, and then you still have to go through the utility to get a interconnection agreement and power purchase agreement, and that's still, you're competing in a competitive process, and so you never know if that's actually going to move forward or not, or if Duke is going to accept your project. That's all I really have. I have a few appendix slides if there's any questions on those kind of items, but I'm just here to answer questions that anyone might have.
You said you've been in North Carolina for about 8 years?
Myself or the company?
The company, yes.
Yeah, so we were founded in 2014. So yeah, and North Carolina was the very first state we started operating in.
But here you're talking about a 40-year project.
That's right, yes. Yep.
A lot of unknowns.
Yeah, we've developed over a gigawatt in North Carolina alone, which is probably about 250 projects. And so, we've got a really good, we have a lot of experience and know how to operate these and know how to develop them responsibly. And so and once it's in the ground, it's not creating any additional traffic or anything like that. So we know how to take care of them at this point, but, and then once it's built, it's kind of just, it sits there, to be honest.
Those that you've constructed in North Carolina, has any of those been sold after the project started to another solar company?
Not to another solar company, but we've sold them to like a Fortune 500 company, such as your, Apple, Amazon, all that kind of stuff.
I think there was a quote in the paper, and it's in your printed materials here too. I don't know who gave that quote to the paper, but could you clarify what you mean by a handful of permanent jobs? I don't know what that really means.
Sure. Yeah, so for a facility of this size, it will have its own, I'll call it an office space. It's essentially like a permanent construction trailer on site. And that'll be housed by 2 to 3 people so that they can make sure the plant is operating how it's supposed to be. And so we have those 2 or 3 people, and then additionally, depending on how much we develop in North Carolina, there could be additional jobs based out of our Durham office, to be clear. But you would have those 2 to 3 permanent jobs that are based in Person County, and then obviously there's the local contractors that we would work with as well.
Okay, Commissioner, questions? Anyone? No? Okay.
What would be the process for, so obviously we had the ordinance, they're not in compliance with the ordinance because it's over 100 acres. With the permit process, they would schedule a future application for the text amendment. Is that correct?
And the public hearing.
And the public hearing?
Yeah.
Any amendments to the existing ordinance would be considered in the board's sound legislative discretion if any one or more commissioners are interested in offering or considering amendments. There's no requirement that the board consider any amendments to the ordinance that the board fairly recently adopted. It is relatively restrictive. It was, as some of the speakers said, adopted by the board after careful consideration. So that would be if the board wants to consider any amendments at all to the ordinance, it would just be a straightforward legislative matter for the board to then vote up or down. Let me add my usual admonition. One of the commissioners asked me this question previously, so let me tell you all the answer. If this company, this North Carolina company that has a track record in North Carolina, or any other, files an application for land use approval, they have two options under the current Person County ordinances. One is to seek a special use permit. The other is a legislative conditional district zoning request. You all remember that the special use permit proceeding is a bit more complicated. That is a quasi-judicial matter. So my admonition to you, and later if any applicant files an application seeking a special use permit, is this. In a quasi-judicial special use permit proceeding, the board only considers evidence that is offered in support of that application in that public hearing. So respectfully, anything the gentleman has said in this informational presentation would not be considered by the board, and you would only consider what's offered in the hearing.
Well, I'll just make a statement, and I think the board worked pretty hard on establishing the new ordinance, and I'm very happy with it. Take that for what it's worth.
Thank you, sir. Any other commissioner comments, questions? Okay, sir.
Mr.
Thank you for
Chairman,
your
one
time.
more from the county attorney, if I may.
Yes.
You all know that in the carbon plan order recently issued by the Utilities Commission, there is certainly significant mention of alternative energy sources, including solar. That does figure into, under that order, the energy future in North Carolina. I have asked the question twice to knowledgeable people whether in any way, as far as they know, the relatively restrictive solar farm ordinance now in effect in Person County is an obstacle to conversion of those two existing Duke generation plants. And so far the answer is no. But if I hear any indication that the solar farm ordinance as it is somehow or in any way a hindrance to the conversion of those plants, I will let the board know.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda, item number 6, permitting process update. Manager Kathy.
Good evening, Board. We are bringing to you an update on our permitting process, and this is at the request of the Board. The last time we gave a formal update was in mid-2021, and at that time, or shortly thereafter, the Board did approve some additional staff. Environmental Health added 2 positions, and our Inspections Department also added a position. We were at a point where we had reduced the permitting timeframes, but those have been extended again. This is largely due to turnover within the Planning and Zoning Department, as well as Environmental Health's work on becoming fully staffed, but not quite getting there yet. And they did lose a position over this time frame as well. So we will just talk in a little more detail about those timeframes, and then following that, our staff will demonstrate for you the customer service portal within the InterGov system, and also show you some of the internal workings of the system that our staff are utilizing on a daily basis. So in your agenda packet, I had provided a chart which shows you the permitting processing timeframes. As you see, from April 2021 to August 2021, those were reduced, and then again, this past December, those timeframes had been lengthened once again, and I do believe that that has led to some complaints and concerns that have been expressed by the customers who do utilize those departments. Our staff is currently utilizing a concurrent review process with the interest of speeding up the permitting timeframe. As you can see, within environmental health, that has been lengthened to 12 weeks. Their goal is to be able to conduct those site visits within 30 days. So that is stipulated as the target. But you will see that currently that is much more spread out. We are having staff begin the review process in planning and zoning while an application is still pending in environmental health, and likewise inspections is also beginning their review of the paperwork. They cannot actually issue a permit until the preceding step has been completed. So under the concurrent review process, even if planning and environmental health were to reduce their time frame, you'd still have a couple days after that for planning and zoning to be able to issue their approval. They may have to reconsider some aspects of it if anything changed in environmental health. And then following that, the inspections department would be able to issue their permit. There's a chart in your packet that does show the staffing levels in each of these departments. We now have 7 full-time positions in environmental health, 3 in planning and zoning, and then in the addition to that, we have added a contract code enforcement officer who started in July of 2022. And so they have been helping us get address pending or that had been waiting complaints. So she has been actively addressing the backlog of complaints that we had. And we did add the senior code enforcement officer in inspections. So again, environmental health is very, very close to being fully staffed. And planning has been fully staffed since November. But of their 3 full-time staff members, they are all new to their positions. We have 2 who are new to the department and 1 who was promoted last year. So in a way, I mean, they are all in a process of coming fully up to speed with their job duties. And we have found that in some cases, as staff is trying to review our ordinances, review our policies and procedures, evaluate our processes, review our forms, there may be some interpretations of the staff in those new positions that was different from the staff who occupied the positions before. So I think that has led to some frustration as well. But staff is working very hard to ensure a uniform understanding of all of those provisions, and they are also actively working to update the forms that are tied into the ordinance and make sure that the language mirrors one another and that those forms are straightforward and easy to follow for our applicants. They're also working on reducing the number of forms that we have so that the process is more understandable. Inspections has been fully staffed since August of 2022 after adding a new position and having one position that had turnover. So getting to InterGov, we have been working on implementing InterGov for over 3 years now, or thereabouts, almost 3 years. It has been a process that staff has had to spend quite a bit of time on. And if you remember, we also had COVID and a cyber event that happened in the process of trying to do this. So staff has been utilizing the InterGov system for their departmental operations for quite a while now. And in addition, the City of Roxborough Planning Department also uses it. So we have those county users and users in the city. They have been effectively utilizing the system, continuing to work through upgrades that are needed due to changes that are made in InterGov, adapting to those changes and trying to configure the system as best they can to meet our needs. The self-service portal, that is the outward-facing component of this system, has been made available for applications to be submitted to the inspections department, as well as to environmental health in the city. They have all been using the online application. We had not come and done a presentation to the board quite yet because the planning department was still working on getting their applications in the system up and running, and we had not completed that process yet. So we weren't quite to the point where everybody could submit all their application forms through the self-service portal. But the other departments have been utilizing it. We have had applications submitted through self-service. There are still issues with that staff is still spending quite a bit of time to work through with InterGov. So we have had multiple staff meetings to go over issues with the system, many emails, help tickets back and forth with InterGov, continuing to reiterate problems that do exist. For example, one thing with the self-service portal, and another reason why this hasn't been put out, to say, everybody come and use this now. Applicants frequently get an error message because of an issue with the system communicating with our GIS. And that is an InterGov thing, and that has been addressed with them repeatedly, and the most recent response that we received from them is that it will be fixed with the next rollout, the next update that they roll out, and that there's nothing that they can do before then to fix it. So we routinely encounter these types of things that are not completely within our control in trying to get this system to perform the way we need it to for our staff purposes and for the public to use it. So it is supporting our operations, not completely up to speed for the self-service. We are working on it, and the Planning and Zoning Department does have a target to have their streamlined applications loaded into the system and configured for use by March 1st. And just to summarize, for environmental health, they have, all of our staff are very much committed to providing a high level of customer service in their job duties. They are constantly looking at our processes, trying to determine what can be improved. Environmental health, based on their workload, knew that they needed some additional manpower to accomplish what was on their plate. They have pulled in other staff from the health department to help them do water samples and staff the office. So they are utilizing other resources, and they've recently hired someone part-time who's a former environmental health employee to come in and help shorten the time frames for site visits. Let me see if there's anything else that I would like to highlight. We asked, or it included, the Development Services Department had asked for a new position in last year's budget, which would serve as a customer service representative, staff that front desk, be able to be a presence to answer the phones for all the departments and direct people where they need to go, answer frontline questions. That was not included in last year's budget because we had already increased staffing in those departments and wanted to see, if those new staffing levels would help alleviate some of the concerns. They have submitted that request again in this year's budget. We included a couple of, or a report for each department that does show you some workload measures in those departments and some associated timeframes. And again, we just want to emphasize that we want to receive feedback from the board and from the public, and that we do want to take that and apply that in a constructive way to improve the services. I'll be glad to answer any questions or receive any feedback from you all tonight on that update. And again, we do have staff here who are going to demonstrate the InterGov system and would also be available for any questions. Would you like to move into the demo first or have some discussion?
Doesn't matter, I'll hold my question until later. I don't know about everybody else.
I can wait till later, I got questions as well.
Go ahead.
Okay. demo?
Good evening, everybody.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'm Dale Tillman, Director of Inspection of Carson County. We've got the intergov system pulled up. I do have a builder here that's been working with us on building the system. What we did when we started intergov in 2020, we reached out to 4 or 5 different builders that have used it in other counties. They've used intergov in other counties. We wanted to keep ours as simple as possible for the builders and the users in the system. So in doing this, they were our guinea pigs, kind of. They told us, they gave us their feedback on what they saw in other counties and what they were seeing as we were building. So we tried to keep it simple, is probably a better way to say it. I've got Mark Duncan here with Aegis Building Company, who's been one of those guinea pigs. He's gonna show you what he sees on the customer side of things in the CSS portal. So, Mark, you'll come on up and get started with that. On your screen there is the Citizen Service Portal. He's already logged in, and he can go to his dashboard on there and show you what he sees for, these are the permits that he has in the system already. The active permits, the pending permits, everything that he puts in from his side shows up like this to him. He has one actually that's active now that's ready to be paid for an invoice. If you want to pull that up, Mark, we'll show him that part of it.
And so what we see is, we go on our dashboard and we can enter all of our subs, plans, and it basically takes the place of the paper application that we used to do. We still provide plans to, full-size plans to the building inspections, because I think they don't have the way to view them.
Right, well, we've just got in place where we can do our electronic review. Brandon and his staff, with Chris, they all got our monitors upgraded to bigger monitors and TVs for where we need them to be able to do an electronic plan review, because, you know, trying to look at a house plan that's this big, on a screen this big, doesn't work too well. So we've got that in place now. Can you pull up the plans of one that you've got? Or we can get Dan to do that when he comes up. But anyway, in this system, Lynn will, when something comes in for review, Lynn assigns it to one of our inspectors. They'll do the electronic review, and if any comments need to be made, they'll write the comments out, and that goes back to Mark in this system. He can see it on his dashboard here. If he got any corrections that need to be made, you know, he can make those corrections and then resubmit them, and that's how we communicate with him through this process. Once all the bugs are worked out of, it's going to be a great process. Catherine mentioned the error message. One of the things that we're getting right now is when people will submit one and they get an error message, they don't think it's came through, and they'll submit it again, and then they'll submit it again. And we end up with multiple permits on one project that makes more time for staff. We just found out this past week that that won't be fixed until Intergrove rolls out the next upgrade. We've been working on that one ticket for over 6 months, trying to get that fixed so that it went along smoother and faster. So it's been a little frustrating working on that.
Yeah, but kind of back to what Dale was saying, I mean, this screen here will be our final screen. I mean, we can go, then we can check out, which then we would put in our information, which we pay with our credit card, fill everything out, pay, and then they send us a receipt, which is much easier than us, instead of having to get a check or something and carry it down to the inspections department.
Right. But go ahead and show them where you would apply for one with us.
So we first go on to here and just go on to apply. This is what we would see come up, and it basically lists every single permit that we could apply for. I mean, it starts here with home occupation, and a lot of these, we wouldn't deal with, but, you know, environmental health, well permits, all of these site valves, and it just continues to go on down. Building new construction residential, obviously, is one that we would do, and we would hit apply. And from here, what we would go in and it asks, you know, what location, this is where we would put the address in. And it actually allows us to look up the address by GIS. We can zoom in, we can, if we already know the address or the tax map and parcel number, we can find it really easy. And then, do you want me to go through and do one, because?
Now, let's keep it
because that
short,
would-
yeah, it would,
It won't go to the next stage until we get
yeah.
one submitted, like the address, we can pull it up, and then is it,
Since we have such a lengthy meeting tonight, we're not gonna go all the way through that process.
in
Next-
this one up top, the next one will be the type. It asks what type of structure we're gonna do, then contacts, this is where we put our address, the owner's name and address, any of our subcontractors. And one thing that we like about this is that once we put in our subs, who are also in this system, I think they get an email
Right.
to alert them that we've identified them as a subcontractor on this project.
And that's helped us on our side of things. If we have a builder that's just picking a name out of the hat, they get an email letting them know, hey, you've been added to this project. If they're not doing that project, our phone rings right away, you know, so we've cut out a lot of that where people were signing names for somebody else on a permit. So
But it
that's,
continues on to more info, that's just information about your, who's the power company, the premise number, you know, just the whole thing. Attachments, we go in and we attach our plans, our lien agent, any site plans or anything in that nature. That goes into attachment. It asks for our signature then, and then that is submitted. And once it goes through that, it actually, and I'll pull up, did they kick it out? 'Cause I don't have any.
yeah, you're not logged in.
But
Anyway, Dan will show them that on his side.
and we can go in and it actually has a pie chart that will actually tell us where in the process it is. It's in permitting, you know, what it's waiting on and that sort of stuff. And then it'll tell us when it's complete.
And Mark has actually already submitted one that's in there waiting. Dan has done an electronic review on it. We're gonna pull that part up now and show you what it would look like on that side of things, so.
But it's been a real time saver for us because I can sit at my desk and basically go through all 7 of these steps in about 20 to 25 minutes.
And once those contractor contacts are in there, he doesn't have to add them every time. All he has to do is click for their name and it'll pop up and, you know, so it saves them a lot of time. So,
So, yeah, and I'll let Dan just.
all right, thank you, Mark. What we're gonna be going into now is what we see on our side of things once something is submitted in the EnerGov software. We have went through 2 upgrades already with this. The first EnerGov we saw looked nothing like this. And now we've got, the next EnerGov we had was similar to the first one, and then we got a brand new one that's totally different from anything we've seen. So we're still learning our way around in that one as well.
quickly as it would at their desks because they are plugged in at in a different spot. So with all the security provisions that we have in place, I think that's leading to the clicking around more so than necessary right now. But when they're at their desk, it's right at their fingertips. Here we go. This is what they see.
Yeah. Well, you're still on mine right now. You are.
This is the one that Mark just submitted.
All right, speak into the mic.
This is the permit that Mark just submitted. When we go to this, it goes to a permit tech, and they would assign the review to me or another inspector. We then go to our files. These are the files that he would upload right here. Plans, lien agent, and the permit application. So your set of plans that he just submitted. All right, we will go through and do a plan review on it. And I'll compile the permit application, lien agent, and then the set of plans. And then, if everything's good, he would get a stamp reviewed for code compliance for Person County. And it gets uploaded back to the portal where they can download it and print off a full-size copy.
Right, and they'll print off a full-size copy for us to have on the job site to be able to do an inspection by. And you imagine trying to take one of your small screens there and hold it to see those plans, you'd be zooming in everywhere. So we still require a paper copy on the job site to do the inspection by. All right, thank you, Dan.
Yes, sir.
Y'all have any questions for us?
One of my questions as I look at this, what we were seeing when we went through that was a building inspection permit. And that is probably not one of the ones that's taking, I mean, it looks like you guys are on, your current is 7 to 10 days. Is that correct?
Yeah,
For that?
yeah, on the inspection side of things, we're doing the concurrent review with zoning, and they'll bring in our paperwork at the same time that they give zoning theirs. So 7 to 10 business days, we have our review done, and it's sitting and waiting for a permit to come from zoning. And once everything's together, we're the catch-all. So once we get all the pieces from environmental health, planning and zoning, and address even, we're able to issue our permit. And we're 1 to 2 days after all of the pieces come together, and we have them a permit, so.
I'm sorry, and I should have mentioned earlier, we do have Bonnie Holt, who's our environmental health supervisor here, and Chris Boley, our planning director. Sally Vaughn is also here, our GIS director, and Lauren Johnson, who's the planning director for the city of Roxborough, is here as well.
All right. I guess my question, because if you look at the bottleneck, it's the environmental and health side of it. And so, and what we're seeing here, it goes pretty quick.
Yeah.
Does it go pretty quick with the environmental as well when they go online to do this, or is that, I just don't.
I'll
Yes,
let
it's
Bonnie
a similar
speak to that.
process, but Bonnie can tell you a little
Bonnie
bit
and them were
more.
actually her and Lauren with the city were our first departments to start using it full-time online, and it's been pretty smooth for them.
So as far as the whole intergov process of it, it's very similar to what Dell goes through. It's more of the field work that's what's taking the longest right now, and it's just because of staffing
And
shortages.
I guess when I was writing down a couple of notes, we were talking about the next update and rollout. How long has it been since they've had an update and rollout with this InterGov?
We got the newest version of InterGov, the one we're showing you right now, about 9 months ago, and they're still having issues with it after the rollout. And that's what we've faced the whole 3 years we've been working on these things. As soon as we get the new system, they're fixing their issues, then it's time for another upgrade. So, again, since 2020, we're on our 3rd InterGov.
So, in your opinion, are we getting good customer service or we're not?
No.
We're not getting good customer. So what do we do? What's our options? Do we have any options? Is there any
We've spent a lot of time.
warranties or anything like that?
We've spent a lot of time and money on this program, and I'd love to say, hey, give me my money back. But honestly, I don't want to build another one. We built this, pretty much the way it works with them. There are other systems out there that are ready-made that they can hand you, but it doesn't connect to everybody. It wouldn't be connected to our GIS. It wouldn't connect environmental health to our department. With Tyler, we were actually promised a environmental health process. Well, they thought what we were wanting was food and lodging, but we were wanting well and septic. So Bonnie's staff, they actually built this environmental health component for Tyler. They gave them, this is what we need. They went through the process and built it with them. So now Tyler's able to take that and use it in other places. But that's what's been the hiccup with this all along. We were promised one thing and got something else. So.
Going back to where we're at right now as far as how long it's taking, is this time of year, January, February, is this what you would consider your busiest time, or we're looking, we got a lot more?
These are normally our slowest couple of months. When spring rolls around, we'll be 10 times as busy as we are right now.
I don't know how we're gonna catch up.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at this and we're in the slowest period of time.
Well,
and-
environmental health was able to finally get fully staffed. There is training for 2 of those people that, a year and a half before they can go out on their own. So once they're fully staffed and fully trained, things will catch up, but it's gonna be a while. Yeah, but they're offering other options too. They do have, a soil scientist can bring in, I'll let Bonnie speak to all that, so.
So one of the things that legislation has passed are other options, because this is an issue statewide, really, not just Person County. So where they can have a soil scientist do an evaluation, which is called an A2 option, which goes a little bit beyond what soil scientists used to be able to do and just say, here's your soils area, and then we would go out. So this is something we do make known to the public. It would speed up their time frame. It does cost a little bit more on the public side too, but, so we make aware of all their options and let them choose which way they want to go.
I know what I'm getting ready to say may be a sore subject, but it is with most people when they're working, but have we looked, are we extending the hours, working overtime or anything like that to try to get this number down?
We've had several staff who've worked over 40 hours in a week to 44 hours and so forth. We've actually had a part-time person start, and he has a full-time job with another county, and he comes on the weekends to help us out. So, yes, sir.
Well, I know y'all trying. I know you got, it's difficult. You're dealing with Intergov and the process they've got going on there. But I really do feel for our builders and people who are trying to get a house built or something of that nature, and the delay and how long it's taking. And I know we've said this before in other meetings that, the price of lumber and things is not going down so much. And so the longer we take, then whatever it costs to build that house 30 days ago could change drastically in 90 days, right? So, so I feel for them, and I know the pressure's on you guys. So I appreciate you, giving us this information. And hopefully the people who may not hear, but the public will get this information as well. I know you guys are working on it.
Once zoning gets the rest of their process built in there, we intend, I've been speaking with Chris and the other departments, we intend to go to a home builders meeting sometime in the near future and present this to them, letting them all know how they can use it. We would love for all the bugs to be worked out from Tyler, but as we found out last week, that won't happen. So, of course, we're going to iterate to everybody. If you see an error message, please don't submit it again. We got it already. But our staff is already putting that out to everybody, because some of them, what's the most you've had? 14 on one? 14 on, it's supposed to be one application. We got 14 for the same one because people keep hitting the button. And that's something that Tyler just now told us, hey, it's our problem. We can't fix it. So, like I said, I'd love to tell them, give me my money back, but we've got a lot invested in this. So.
I'd like to echo a couple of things Commissioner Sims has said. This is not about our hardworking staff. It's not about that. It's not about our employees. It's pretty much asking for an update to let us know your problems, your concerns, because we hear it from the opposite side. Manager Kathy mentioned 30 days there somewhere in this process.
Or the environmental health goal.
Yeah.
That is the established
Yeah.
target.
And I go back in August of '21 is when I started requesting some feedback from the former manager. And this has been going along all this time. And so here we are tonight. It's sort of, in a sense, a self-evaluation
Yep.
to see where we are, where we're headed.
Keep in mind.
Intergov is an issue. I keep hearing that repeatedly, and I agree. If it's not working, then we need to cut our ties and move on. Now, I assume there is a yearly subscription.
There is, and Dale has shared a lot of information regarding the contract and various iterations of that and billing over the last few years. So we are trying to go through that with a fine-tooth comb right now to make sure that in advance of our next renewal, that we are, fully informed about what the charges are and having the conversations with them about whether or not they are meeting the expectations in each of those categories, given some of the struggles that we've had.
They're waiting on a check right now, but they're not getting one yet.
Well, I think that would be very appropriate. In any business, we go about it like that. It appears to me, and I'm not the professionals here that you are, but it appears that there's a roadblock with Intergov, and it's not working as it should, and it filters down to the contractors and the homeowners and the service they deserve.
Yep.
I repeatedly say government is working for the people. I mean, it's about service.
Yes, sir.
And if you don't have the tools to work with and serve the public, then we've got a problem there. So I hope you guys don't take our approach here wrong. It's just that it's a tremendous issue. And with planning, zoning, and permitting, economic development comes into that category very big from our side. If we want growth, people don't want to wait 6 months to get a permit, or some of them even talk about longer periods, but I don't know that. All I know is what I hear. But again, I appreciate all you're doing, your efforts, and let's pinpoint those bottlenecks, as Commissioner Sims mentioned, the roadblocks, and identify those, and then within, find the corrective action and move forward, go with it. Thank you both, all of you.
So, question, Chairman Powell.
Yes, sir.
A couple of them. They come on site and install this portal?
They came and met with us and we built it with them. It's not something they hand you. They come and ask you, give you questionnaires, ask you a ton of questions about how you function. And then they build it as to how you're functioning. On the inspection side of things, we went with a lot of the standard permit application stuff and all that they already had in there. We didn't have to buy a lot of custom documents. We were able to adapt ours to fit theirs. On the environmental health side of things, like I said, they didn't have that component, so they had to build it from the ground up. On the zoning side of things, the same thing. It's so customized for each development ordinance, all that kind of stuff. Everything's different for every county, so it all has to be built that way. It's not something that's out of the box.
Okay. So they're aware that we're having this problem then?
Oh, yes. They've been aware.
When does our subscription run out?
We're actually,
In a new year already?
yeah, we're at a new year now. They sent an invoice maybe 3 weeks ago.
Oh, boy.
So,
Wow.
now this was a three-year contract, if I remember right. So a new contract would have to be written. The last one was written in 2020, so sometime this year a new contract would be written anyway. But we're working on changing the existing contract to actually meet what we need and what they've got on there that we think is
Probably the
wrong.
late summer, early fall before you get to that point now.
So, But I need an answer now because it's budget season, and I haven't gotten one yet. So once we make that decision, then we'll maybe back to you and say, hey,
Right.
time to do something different.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you
Thank
very
all
much.
of you. Item number 7 on the agenda is Charters of Freedom. Manager Kathy.
Okay, if you will recall, in July, you did have a presentation from the Foundation Forward organization. They presented a proposal to build a replica of the Charters of Freedom in Person County. This organization has a goal to build one of these settings in each of the 100 North Carolina counties. So they build this themselves. They offer this as a gift to the county. And when they came and did their presentation, the board did agree to conduct some site visits with the Foundation Forward staff to evaluate sites within Person County to determine what would meet their criteria, which involves easily accessible by the public, a high-traffic area. So the following sites were evaluated. I did leave one out in your agenda abstract, but the courthouse was considered, Huck Sandsbury Recreation Complex, Veterans Memorial Park, and the Person County Historical Museum, or Museum of History. So Huck Sandsbury Park was identified as the ideal location, and the spot that was identified as best fitting the criteria is directly across the street from the Veterans Park. There's actually a crosswalk that extends from the Veterans Park over to Huck Sandsbury, and there's a sidewalk at the end of that crosswalk that crosses over the lawn. Currently, there is signage there and another monument that has been installed there. They did say at the meeting that there might be some costs that the board would need to assume, but they did not go into any detail about that, and they said that they would send a letter of intent for the board to sign to agree to the project. In November, I followed up with them to find out where things stood, and in December, mid-December, we received this letter of intent in the mail. And that is included in your agenda packet as an attachment. It was, asking for authorization to proceed with the project. I did think that the board needed to officially approve that location for the Charters of Freedom, as well as consider the costs that the county will incur for this project, which are currently unbudgeted. So per the letter of intent, the county would be responsible for preparing the site, grading it, ensuring that it's a level surface for the installation. So in order for us to do this at this particular site, we will need to remove portions of the accessible sidewalk that are currently installed across the lawn, and it goes at a oval on either side of the signage. We will need to remove the signage that's there and the landscaping. There's a monument that will need to be relocated over by the tennis courts, and then we will need to ensure that that spot is clear. Estimated expenses for doing that work is around $5,000. Then we will need to reconstruct the accessible sidewalk approach and install a concrete apron around the settings so that they can be accessible to the public. There is verbiage here that they can sit on the grass. I mean, that is acceptable. We looked at a variety of different iterations of these settings throughout the state, and most of the time they do have concrete around them, so that people who are have mobility impairments can approach up to the settings. So if we also, we'd have to put the concrete back, there'd be labor, grading, construction materials for that, approximately $12,000. Then it would be up to the board if you wanted to do some landscaping. If this is meant to attract field trips and serve as an educational spot, you might want to install a couple of benches there. You may want to upgrade the concrete to some pavers, put some shrubs in. That could go up to $12,000. I just wanted to estimate each component of this project for you. It's also optional to run electricity to this site, so, and the flagpole and flag would also be optional, so that is included there. The cost for the flagpole and flag at $10,000. The electricity would be to run from the existing electrical system over by the tennis courts over to this site, and the light would, could be used to light the flagpole and or light some LED lighting within the display cases so that they could be viewed at night. So all of those are potential expenses. Not all of those have to be included in this project. The board can decide what aspects you would want to include. We have about $24,000 available in undesignated contingency in this fiscal year. That is a potential funding source or a fund balance allocation if you did decide to proceed with this project prior to July 1st. If you expressed an interest in working this into next year's budget, then staff could work on budgeting for the components of this that you would like to see installed. Another thing to consider is that with this letter of intent, we need to designate a point of contact for the Charters of Freedom project. That may be a staff member, it may be a champion, you know, on the board, or somebody within the community who really wants to get behind this project. But in addition to that, we would make sure we had a staff designated as the lead. They did reach out to me today to see if there were any questions, check in to where this was, you know, in terms of the decision-making process. I did ask some more questions about the fundraising component that they included in their presentation, and they said that it was not an expectation that the county do fundraising, that they do have the money to proceed with their part of the expenses. Again, we'll have our own expenses, but any fundraising which they would like to do through the sale of pavers and a plaque would go back to the Foundation Forward organization so that they can continue to fund these projects elsewhere. So that's an overview. The letter of intent was included in your packet, and there is a photo of what that area currently looks like, as well as a rendering that they created. I would say the rendering is missing the sidewalk that would approach right there in the middle of the setting that would connect into the where the crosswalk is across the street. Any questions?
Do we know what their investment's going to be? Do we know what it was going to be? Aside from what we got here, do we know what they're going to be, what it's going to cost them?
I do not know what their project cost is.
I remember going out and looking at this project. I think I don't know if everybody on the board, except for maybe Jason, but I remember going out there and looking at the project and location. I liked the location. Of course, we didn't have the price tag of what it was going to cost us as a county to do this. And if you look at the pictures, obviously it's really nice. So I don't know how much they were investing, you know. When they first came out, we were thinking, oh, it's going to be free and not cost us much. And now we're looking at if we do everything that's on here, it's like $44,000. And, you know, which, if you're going to do something like this, you want to do it nice. I don't think you just want to do it and just throw something up there. It's not going to be nice. So, but that is quite a bit of money. So,
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that this be tabled and be brought up at our county retreat. And then we can decide, get the whole picture of everything that we're looking at for future funding with the county, and allow the board to make a decision after we've heard the whole story.
I agree with both of you. We all heard the presentation here originally, and it's a nice project. I mean, it would be very nice, and for a very good reason. It would present quite a bit of historical teaching to especially our young people. But the gentleman that made the presentation said that this project wouldn't cost Person County anything. Well, now we've got a price tag here, $40,000. And I'm not saying it's not worth it, or is it worth it? That's not my question, but we were sort of going into this blindly that it was not going to actually cost the county anything, and now we're finding out a little differently. Of course, Commissioner Sims has said, if we're gonna do it, we want it done right. Some of the feedback that I've gotten from other counties questioned the finished product and its workmanship. I don't know how we can control that, because Charters of Freedom would be actually bringing those, I guess they're volunteers, I'm not sure. They would come in and actually do the work, but, so I would want us to have greater input into that, maybe someone local that would take a lot of pride in their workmanship might be involved, but I'm fine with Commissioner Perrier's
Chairman Powell.
suggestion. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I would like to request John Hill come speak with us for a moment
Yes, sir, sure.
in regards to this, because I'm pretty sure that we don't need to spend $40,000 on this when we have a department and Friends of the Park and volunteers. There are some areas here we don't necessarily need. The pavement for sure. Site preparation, I think that's pretty easy. All I have to do is bust up some concrete and grade it down. We can do that with a shovel and hoe, right? With volunteer help.
Yeah, we could definitely probably find volunteers to help
Right.
out with the project, and maybe get the school involved or whatever.
Boy Scouts.
The numbers that you see are pretty safe numbers, though. That's what that is. That's a safe number if you were to do say go with the project.
If you hired a contractor.
Second?
If you hired a contractor.
If you hired a contractor.
Right.
But, pouring concrete, we could do some of the pouring concrete, but some of that price is the actual cost of the concrete as well.
Okay.
So we could probably tighten those numbers up if you wanted, depending on what direction you wanted it to go and what you wanted it to look like.
Okay, could we do this in stages? Like add a flagpole later? That's $15,000.
Yeah, it's kind of an a la carte. I mean, you can.
$10,000 for a pole and $5,000 for a flag?
Yeah,
No, that's electricity, I'm sorry. Flag and pole, $10,000?
It also depends on the design that you would want. If you would, like Catherine said, if you wanted to set it on the grass at first, you could set it on the grass. It could happen in stages, but, what do you want it to look like? I mean, if you want it to look top notch when you walk through the park, you'd break it off.
I just wanted your feedback on this.
Okay.
Because you were here.
Yeah.
So I wanted to hear what you had to say. How could we save money on this project?
Well, the best way to save money on the project is get the school system involved with their vocational classes. So we've had the school before come to the parks and do break work and do other things like that. You could also break it into phases to make it into a scout project or solicit Eagle Scout projects. We just recently did 2 Eagle Scout projects this past year. One was at the Sportsplex, and actually there was a couple at the Sportsplex. So it wouldn't happen immediately. You would have to set the stage and say, okay, this is what it's going to be. Let's have a conversation with some of these kids, some of these scout groups, some of these schools. Let them do the volunteer hours and then put it in phases. It could be worked out.
Yeah.
But there is going to be some kind of cost to it. There's going to be concrete costs.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be electricity costs.
Yeah,
And of course,
but $40,000 worth. That's a lot of
All
course.
right.
But
Okay.
it's a lot of coordination. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's not.
Which I love the project. I love the idea. I want to go forward with this, but I think we could seek a much more sensible direction with our funding.
And that'll go along with Commissioner Perrier's suggestion that we take it up.
Yeah, but I wanted to talk with him before we table it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
And if I'm instructed to reach out to those, to reach out to these different organizations to see what the interest is about helping and volunteering, maybe get the Friends of the Parks involved, and maybe, getting the Recreation Advisory Board involved where they can reach out to other people as well. But it's not gonna be free, it'll be cheaper, it's never gonna be free.
That's what we're after.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're wanting to have your discussion, your retreat, get a better idea of where we're going with the budget, and we can revise the estimates based on some different labor configurations and maybe limiting the features to bring that total down.
Everybody in agreement?
Yeah.
You okay with that? All right, thank you, John. Appreciate that. Item number 8 on the agenda is Person County Office Building Auditorium renovation. Mr. Fushi.
Good evening, Commissioners.
sir.
In some past meetings, you gentlemen have expressed an interest in relocating your meeting quarters from upstairs room 215 down to the auditorium. And in order to capitalize on a larger meeting space, not only would this give you guys a larger meeting space, but everyone, including the county and public patrons using the auditorium, would benefit from the proposed upfit and renovations. So kind of taking into consideration what I think you guys had expressed an interest in, listening to some of the public about their use of the auditorium, staff tried to kind of come up with a happy medium, kind of walk the line between the two, and maybe at least propose something for you to consider that would be beneficial to both. So in summary, the proposed renovation would include kind of go item by item. Number one, sheetrock walls. We would, as you, I guess the contractors say, fur out the walls with 2x4s, put sheetrock on the walls. That would, number one, make it look much better in here and get away from the concrete walls. Number two, we would greatly reduce the echo factor that we talk about so often. Number two, we would put a drop ceiling in. So get away from the conventional ceiling, put a drop ceiling down about 10'8", 11 foot high, still big enough to justify the space, high enough to justify the space in the auditorium. But the drop ceiling would let us put in new LED lights. We'd put in new registers for the AC heat, which right now you got these 4 large registers, and whenever they come on, it's trying to push air through 4 registers. Probably need about 8 or 10, and it'll be much quieter, much smoother transition. We would also install a new HVAC system along with the new registers. The air handler now is above the kitchen, in that space above, on top of the kitchen. It is over 30 years old. I think the unit upstairs is already leaking Freon, and we're gonna have to address it soon. So just figured in completely new HVAC unit. In the drop ceiling, we would put, as I said earlier, new LED lightings to greatly improve the lighting as well as reduce the energy factor. And behind you, we would convert the stage to a meeting or conference room with windows overlooking the auditorium. So you would have a wall behind you, you would have 2 vertical windows, and in between the 2 windows would be enough space for the pull-down screen, which would hang on that wall for the projection system. In the right room, or to my right over here, this closet now would be converted to an IT room, so all your IT hardware would be in that room, and they would work out of that room, kind of like upstairs where they work out of the room across the hall from you. That would be their location and headquarters for all their paraphernalia. And then I guess one of the most questionable items, this proposal is equipping this room or this area that you guys would be in with modular furniture. It would be a rounded table system, which I think you have some pictures in your brochure. Rounded table system, wire channel beneath the table, grommets in the tables, a very professional looking system, yet one that is, I guess I want to call it semi-transparent. In reference to the comment earlier, no, it's not something I want to take down every week and put up with staff. But yes, it's something that could be taken down for the times during the year that require the full use of the auditorium. So These tables would also have a privacy screen in front of them for the, for coverage for the ladies that would sit in behind it, whatever that idea. Estimated timetable to do the renovation would be 5 to 6 weeks. It's quite extensive when you talk about sheetrocking all these walls and dropping ceiling and HVAC system, so it's gonna take a little time to do it, so we would need to block this room out of the calendar for a period that we could address that. Last year, you guys appropriated $120,000 for a possible renovation of the auditorium. My comment was supposed to say project estimates should not exceed $150,000. On the attachment that was in your packet, when I itemize each one of those items, I'm coming up with about $131,500. But as in any renovation, you're gonna run into some things that might not be planned on, and so I would basically put a not to exceed $150,000 number on there. You know, you'd also talked about putting some cushion chairs up front. I didn't include that in the quote at this point, but hopefully we would have money to do that and maybe a few other things that you guys have expressed an interest in. So you also have a detail of the proposals in your attachment, which kind of gives the pros and cons of, well, at least the pros of each item. The drop ceiling would again allow wiring and everything to be run above ceiling. It'll also help in your echo factor. The new unit, self-explanatory, be much quieter, more efficient. LED lighting, HVAC registers, you know, sheetrock on the walls, finished color, whatever you guys would choose. Painting the entire room with 2 coats of paint, modular tables, and then basically upfitting the IT group. So quotes at this point are $131,476. I think we could easily make this project happen and keep it less than $150,000 if you so desire to proceed. So at this point, that is just one proposal of many variations, I guess. So just wanted to kind of get it out on the table to you guys tonight. See if this is something you're interested in. See if you want to branch off and modify it in some form or fashion. So I guess our options, if I summarize it that way, are to stay down here as you are now, modify the room in some form or fashion to accommodate you for maybe months and years to come, or move back upstairs to the old existing room. So I'm available
Floor's
for questions.
open.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. I think the intent of the board, when this was originally brought up, there was a good intent, and Ray, I want to thank you for all your hard work on this project. At this time, I think the board should start meeting back at room 215, and that's our board room. And if we need to come back down here because we're expecting a larger audience, we can set up just like this as well. But no, I kind of miss room 215.
Chairman, go ahead, sir.
Has anybody addressed, is there asbestos upstairs here?
Haven't checked it, but, you know, because we were gonna put a drop ceiling under it and not
going to disturb
not
it?
disturb it, so I don't really have to.
No concern?
No concern.
No concern. Because that would be major cost.
Mr. Chair, I think what we hear, or what I've heard, is, again, the concern of space, taking up space down here for other meetings and other things that happen down here. And, but I also look at, you know, some of this happening. Installing a drop ceiling is not taking away the square footage. I mean, again, for sound. The other thing is the HVAC unit. I think somewhere down the road it's gonna have to be replaced. When, what, how, but I know there's been times we've had to come up here and adjust whatever. And I'm saying this not for us to have a county commissioners meeting here. I'm thinking about everyone else that uses this room, what we can do and some improvements on that. I'm not big on furniture, getting the furniture. I'm okay with just what we have here is fine with me if we have to have a meeting here. But I do think that, speaking this place up a little bit, it would be nice. Having I think you were talking about 2 feet on each wall coming in and then putting sheetrock up, correct? And that
Putting a 2x4, you sheet the wall with a 2x4
Yep.
and then put sheetrock against
Right.
that. So, I mean, the wall would only be,
4 inches.
Yeah.
4 inches thick.
4 inches. Yeah, and so, again, I'm thinking, looks, cosmetics of this room. Because I do believe that, and I don't know, it certainly can be mentioned to the people who use this room, other than county commissioners, but it would be something to think about. Because I think if I was having a meeting here, I was having, we were here for breakfast one time, I think it would be nice for this to look more modern, in my opinion. Do we have the money for it? I don't know, but I'm also okay us meeting upstairs, as Commissioner Puryear said. I wouldn't say I want to invest all this money just for the county commissioners to have their meetings here. I don't know how much time it takes for us to set these tables up. But I know the concern is when you look at the drawing, these tables here that would be laid out, they're probably not as easy to move as probably what we did here. I don't know.
certainly would not be.
I also like the idea of the IT, because I know in here, our IT's right here, but having a room for them. So I guess what I'm saying, doing this renovations and upgrade for the county commissioners be not my goal, but if we could do these renovations and do them in stages, I don't know, to make this room look more modern, I like that idea.
I like that idea too, because either way you go with that, we would still do the drop ceiling, should do the HVAC, should do the lighting, those things, and that 120 is already budgeted.
It is
Right,
funded in
so
the CIP, this year's
It's already there.
CIP.
Right.
So you could deduct from that. And Inspector Tillman, while you're here, I've asked this question before. Could that elevator barrier there be moved? Is that of any consequence?
The barrier could be removed, you still have to provide a area of refuge for anybody that's there waiting for a wheelchair top and bottom. They have to have room for the firemen to come in and come get them there, so it'd still be some area, but not that big of a.
And, okay, so that would come down and what would have to go up there?
It's called an area of refuge, it wouldn't have to be any kind of barrier, you just couldn't put anything permanent there.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Well, that would open up some square footage over there on that side, so that's good. I don't know,
So really, everything on this list that we talked about, except for the furniture, would basically modify or improve this room. The furniture for you as county commissioners would be the only thing that would be, as you say, dedicated to you guys if you went that route. Everything else would be modification, even if we decided to go ahead and make that a meeting room there and wall it off, since it's very seldom, if ever used as a stage, that would just provide another conference room for this building or for anybody that needed to use it.
Well, that's kind of what I thought, when we talked about this with the architect, was not lose that space and not just scrap it, but provide a meeting room there if we need to. And IT would love to be back there with everything all set up, and they don't have to do what you see out here on the floor all that much or that often. So, I don't know. I'm kind of in the groove to go ahead and look into doing these modifications without the furniture here and maybe go back upstairs in your homeroom. So do we need to do any kind of motion here or any kind of instructions, or you want to work with Ray on
Let me reflect back what I'm
Okay.
hearing.
All right.
I'm hearing that the board would like to proceed with everything that's outlined in detail here, except for the furniture purchase. So that would mean we would continue to utilize this table setup, but we would make all of these other modifications that are listed here, including closing the stage and creating a room on the other side. Is that
Everyone in
correct?
agreement there?
May
And-
I ask
I'm
a
with-
question?
Yes.
So, I guess, hearing a couple of you talking about going back up and meeting upstairs, I mean, if you're gonna meet up there 95% of the time, is it worth putting $20,000 or so into IT equipment, putting it in this room
Well,
over
that's
here?
what we were talking about, carve out whatever we don't want to do.
And that's a good point. You know, sometimes, as in tonight, that room may have been filled to capacity, and it is hard to anticipate whether that's gonna happen on any given night. But if the board
I think we
does
have
want
an
to move
idea
upstairs.
sometimes.
Yeah, we will for certain topics, so, but if the board decides to move back upstairs, then we'd have to carefully evaluate when that might happen.
Mhm.
Okay.
I can attest that it takes approximately 15 minutes to have this room set up.
In a scramble, but
Did it.
ideally, you know, the board is gonna meet where the public notice has been provided for the meeting space, and, you know, so we do need to plan ahead for that, and to make sure all the technology is hooked up. That takes time
Yeah, that's
as well.
Not including that, right. Just tables
So,
and chairs.
so I guess, so that is a piece of it. Does the board want to proceed with the technology improvements, which, I mean, there's an opportunity there as we're doing other, you know, things with the walls and the ceiling, you know, to go ahead and work in the technology upgrades. That may be a little bit more challenging after the fact, but you could proceed with the other components and then evaluate the need for the technology later. But they were taking the opportunity there to do wiring that could be hidden and go ahead and mount screens as part of the project.
I mean, my thoughts on that are not just for us. I mean, I'm thinking about the other groups that meet here. Do they use the IT services? You know, do we have the IT coming here to help other people besides us when we're setting up and doing our county commissioners meeting? And is it something, as you said, do we take care of the cosmetics and then do we go back and do the IT room later or something? I'm just, you know, so I'm not really sure. Because I do get it, we're gonna be, as Commissioner Puryear and myself said, we'd like to go back upstairs to that room. But if it's a situation where we're constantly overflowed and we're gonna have to start coming down here, then, you know, that's something we gotta deal with again. But anyway, so I'm really not sure about the IT, to be honest with you, which way we want to go.
And that's fine with me, I don't have a problem with it. Just to make it more convenient for those guys is the only thing, lessen their work when it comes to setting up for a meeting, but I'm fine.
So we'll be Xing everything off this sheet except Xing number 6 and number 7 off. Is that correct?
Yes.
So everything 1 through 5, we're in agreement to proceed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'll make that in a form of a motion since we already have funds allocated and ask that, and at our first meeting in March, we're back at 2:15.
Okay, we do have a motion, discussion. My only thought there would be to what I question over here.
But that wasn't in his proposal at all, so.
No. So, I don't know what,
The blue bottom floor and trying to match this floor would not happen.
Oh, no,
from a contractor
no.
standpoint.
could we look into that then?
I'll look into that part.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or thoughts? All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried. Item number 9 is public comment rules and procedures. Clerk put my name on that, so. Wanted to maybe clarify the public comment rules and procedures. We've had some discussions in the past several months or a year or two about public comment and this sort of thing. I think generally we as a public have somewhat of a common understanding of policy, procedure, civility and decorum in a meeting that should be respected and conducted likewise. And to clarify that to the public, we just wanted to have a statement that's available both online as well as copies here in this room, so that when we have a meeting, we can pretty much clarify to the public what we expect when people come to address this board. And that's all that's about. It's not a control factor. Again, it is a public meeting, and it's not here to criticize individuals and things of that nature. People want to come, as they did tonight, and share their opinions about solar farms or whatever the issue may be. And that's what a public comment period is all about. So just for clarity, going forward, we do have that written out on a sheet. Those will be available at each meeting if anyone wants to see the expectations of individuals as they speak to this board. And again, we want that done with all civility and decorum and respect to this board. And so that, again, is what that's about. So I don't know if our attorney would like to address any of that.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, just very briefly, the current rules of procedure of the Board of Commissioners have a very general section about public comments. Nothing in these proposed more extensive rules conflicts with what is already in your rules of procedure. There's a statute, as you all know, that does require public comments at least one of your regular meetings each month. The practice written down and continued in what you have before you is to allow public comments at both of the board's regular meetings every month. Everything in the more detailed rules that are before you now is consistent with what the statute requires and allows the board to do, so no conflict. Let me raise one other issue, one that is not addressed in what is before you, but could be if you wish. You all, in some respects, by establishing rules for public comments, have created something in First Amendment terms called a public forum. And unless you say otherwise, anyone who wants to speak can speak about any topic of their choice. For example, U.S. foreign policy issues and that sort of thing. There is nothing to stop someone from making comments about the war in Iraq or any other foreign policy issue. That is not something, obviously, that this board has any authority to do anything about. So my question to you is whether you want to include in the rules a restriction. Many city councils and boards of county commissioners do have a partial content restriction like that, and it would just simply say that comments are limited to issues about which Person County has jurisdiction and a scope of authority to address. So let me give you an example. The gentleman tonight who made some comments about climate change, did eventually get his comments around to discussing solar energy and alternative energy sources. So he got there, but at first, his comments were very general and might not necessarily have been about anything this board can do anything about. So that's just simply my question to you. Do you want to consider adding a restriction like that, or leave it as it is proposed before you?
Well, that's why we've got you in the room. Now, I have no opposition to that, because if it's irrelevant to this board, we don't need to have a public comment about it.
I would like to mention the fact that if that is allowed, that's taking away time from county issues. So I would vote it down, if it were my suggestion.
So that could be a brief addition to what we've got.
I can read language to you that I just wrote for the board's consideration, if you want to consider it.
So we'll, already that statement was in your packet, or our packet, so let's read what you propose adding. And that would be a number, what, there?
Well, I would propose adding this to paragraph number 7.
Okay.
So here are the words, and I can give this to the clerk, so she doesn't necessarily have to write this down, but citizens may offer comments on issues that are arguably within the county's jurisdiction and scope of authority only. Leeway will be accorded, but comments on issues that clearly are not within the county's jurisdiction and scope of authority are out of order. Now, Mr. Chairman, you have the gavel, so as always, you would need to enforce the rules, whatever they are.
Yes, sir.
And I put in the language about providing some leeway, but if you all were to adopt this and folks stray too far, you certainly would have authority to.
Yeah,
Well, doesn't he have that authority right now?
Well, not necessarily, because you created a public forum for folks to say whatever they want. And so there's not clear authority now to restrict comments that go off on the other issues.
Okay, do we need to have a motion to adopt that with that?
That would be a motion to amend what is before you, and then if that is adopted, then the motion would be to adopt the proposal as amended.
Okay.
I would like to add that as an amendment.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carried.
So
Chairman.
The final motion to approve what is before you as amended.
Yes. Okay, final motion. We have a motion from Commissioner. Any questions or comments there? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carried. I have no report. I do want to mention that we have a new Assistant County Manager, but I don't know, maybe, did you want to introduce him, or?
That was my report. It
Okay.
is to introduce
I
our,
won't take it from you.
it's to introduce our new Assistant County Manager, Brian Hart. And we welcomed him last Monday. His first day was the 30th, so he's starting his second week with us, and he comes to us from Forsyth County.
Welcome, sir.
Welcome, thank you. Good evening. It's a pleasure to join the staff. I appreciate Ms. Kathy's trust and confidence in me to join the team. I haven't met nearly everybody involved in delivering services to the residents of Person County, but I do look forward to working alongside them and you all as well. And I appreciate, if I could take a liberty just to tell Chairman Powell that I appreciated your comment about service. That's kind of what brought me into libraries and local government in general, is being able to, provide service to others. So I'm excited about working here, given your comments and others that I've heard tonight. So thank
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right,
Okay.
Commissioner Sims,
I have no report.
Commissioner Palmer.
Yes, I don't know if you guys are with Duke Energy or not, But anyway, I don't have, quick, I got a notice in the mail today. They're doing a public hearing at the Superior Court Room on March the 13th at 7 p.m. Duke Energy is to increase your rates for your electricity use. So if you want to attend and protest against it or argue against it, that's your night to go for Person County. March 13th, 7 p.m.
All right. Commissioner Thomas?
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Perrier?
No report.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank you.